honest, that light is horrible. It's intense. Oh.
It should be right when you're on the phone. It's right there. Just scroll down and you'll see a little video thing. It should be Tri-City Chamber. See it? It's the one for Port Moody, Coquitlam. You're on that page. Got it? Well, it's on that page. It's like you just scroll down, it's in the feed. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's just a video. Press play. You scroll, you pull down. You go to the top and pull down.
I'm sure those phones are on silent.
I'm on the stage, so you should be able to figure it out from there. Give Nico to help you if you can. All right, see you.
Welcome to the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce 2020 Provincial Election Candidates Debate for the riding of Port Moody, Coquitlam. I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Coquitlam First Nation. My name is Justin Levine. I'm a lawyer with Golby Law in Port Moody, and I practice business and real estate law. And I think that makes me moderately qualified to moderate this debate tonight. Today we're going to be hearing from our candidates in the riding of, like I mentioned, Port Moody, Coquitlam, hearing about them, their parties and their plans for our community, our province, and our future. If you're watching live and have questions, please post them in the comments. A human is reading those. Questions were pre-submitted, and I'll address additional questions if time permits. As for the rules and format, each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and the party's platform and an opening statement. After opening statements, our candidates will be asked a combination of questions. There's a number of questions here that have been prepared by the Chamber of Commerce that reflect the business community and submitted by the greater community. We'll be asking our questions candidates until we run out of time today. Based on a random selection, which I'm making up right now, candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to a question I ask before the floor is opened for 1 minute rebuttals for a total of 6 minutes on each question. The debate will then be closed off. We'll move on to a different question. Following that, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks at the end of the night. Candidates, are you ready? Okay, starting. James, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Tri-City Chamber of Commerce for organizing this debate. Good evening. My name is James Robertson, and I'm the BC Liberal candidate for Port Moody and Coquitlam. I'm a local living in the centre of Port Moody with my growing family. I was a Canadian Naval Special Forces officer serving 15 years in the Canadian military, leading teams in a multitude of operations, including Afghanistan, before completing my MBA. Now I work a 4-on, 4-off shift at the port as a superintendent to put food on the table for my family. I understand the struggles and stress that British Columbians are facing because I'm battling them every day just like they are. I actually had to trade shifts at work so I could be here to the debate tonight. We are in one of the greatest financial crises in our history. 25% of businesses in Vancouver don't think they're going to be able to survive the winter. Unemployment is up in double digits. And we had a government that was going to pull together for all people to move out of this pandemic and into recovery. We need a pragmatic approach to improve the lives of all British Columbians and not just the groups friendly to John Horgan. Some may argue that the life of our province is not so bad, that the last 3 years under the NDP, not so bad, and that we're doing okay. We don't want okay. We want better. We want better for businesses that have been on the verge of collapsing for months. We want better for young men and women who are looking for a job and can't even afford their car insurance. We want better for young families like mine who have struggled to find affordable childcare. We want better for seniors that are the most affected by this pandemic and can see no end in sight. I want better, and that's why I'm running to serve you, and I look forward to our discussion tonight. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Rick.
Thank you. My name is Rick Lumak, and I want to thank the Chamber for this opportunity to have this debate tonight. I was a city councillor in Port Moody for about 6 years, and before that I worked in the tech sector on video games and mobile apps and on animated films like Shrek 2 and Madagascar. I maybe don't have a typical background for politics, but for me politics has been an extension of the work that I was already doing in the community. I love my community. I started getting involved when my daughter was born, and I want to make a difference for my kids. I decided to run 3 years ago because I felt like things were not going in the right direction in the province. And they weren't. When you look at the previous BC Liberal government, they were taking teachers to the Supreme Court. They were letting money laundering run rampant. They were letting big money influence politics. They weren't caring for the environment in the way they need to, especially around climate change. So that's why I got involved, and I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to do as an MLA and with the BC NDP government. And I look forward to the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the things that we've been able to do so far and what we hope to do if you put your trust in me as your MLA going forward and in the BC NDP. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Fonseca. I am the Conservative Party of British Columbia's candidate for Port Moody Coquitlam. I'd like to thank the Chamber for holding this debate, and I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for attending this debate. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Mr. Robertson for his distinguished service in our Canadian Armed Forces. I am a molecular biology and biochemistry student at Simon Fraser University. Currently, I'm actually doing research in a climate laboratory studying algae and its relation to glacial recession in BC coastal mountains. One thing that is blatantly obvious is I am young. I'm only 23 years old, and I understand to a lot of voters that may be an issue for them. But I want to show here in this debate today that I understand the policies that are important to you, and I understand the issues that are affecting you daily because I've spent my entire life in the Tri-Cities and I have grown up with these issues. I believe in Trevor Boland's 5-point plan, which is to remove the carbon tax, to allow private competition with ICBC, to reduce greenhouse gases without taxes or fees, to remove red tape for manufacturing, and I will also be a candidate for this riding. I will put this riding before party line votes, and I will bring your issues to the Legislative Assembly in Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates. Open up with the first question, maybe something that may or may not be on some of our minds, COVID-19. From my perspective, a lot of money's being spent, and from what I hear out there, people are talking about reduction in taxes and various programs. So going a little off script here, but put more bluntly, how are you going to pay for this? James started, so I'll go to Rick. You have 90 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, we have to acknowledge that for this period of economic recovery in the middle of a pandemic, we need to run a little bit of a deficit. But our government has run 3 consecutive balanced budgets, and we intend to get back to that at the first opportunity. But what's critical in this is how we're, for example, you mentioned reducing taxes. And The BC Liberals have come out with the platform policy point of eliminating PST for a year. And I frankly don't understand how it's possible to roll out something like that and see the incredible hit that's going to take to the revenue of the province. Some estimates up to $8 billion. And so the BC NDP is taking a much different approach in that. We are directing our response towards the people that need it most. PST is not charged on childcare. PST is not charged on rent. PST is not charged on groceries. This is not what's going to help people. What's going to help people is an economic recovery plan that is funded and I hope to talk about during this debate, and putting people first, all people of British Columbia.
I think there was a bit of a jab there about PST, so James, that's up to you.
We're going to talk about PST. Yeah, so the initial part of that question there was in terms of how we're going to get out of this recovery. Well, first of all, we're taking this situation very serious. This is a warlike situation. As I said, this was one of the biggest financial crises in our history, with a lot of unemployment, a lot of businesses white-knuckling it right now to get out of the situation. One of the most dramatic steps that we can take in terms of providing families instant relief and small businesses relief as well is through PST. That is them keeping their money. Average families see a savings of close to $1,700 right away, instead of building up further administrative costs and doing a wealth redistribution plan through the NDP. We trust people. We're building something in terms of taking that PST cut away. It's a signal to say we take this situation serious, and this is the fastest way we can help you.
Rick?
My question to you, James, is what services are you going to cut to pay for this tax cut? The previous BC Liberal government, over 16 years, is well known for cutting services, healthcare and education cuts. Like I said, taking the teachers to the Supreme Court in order to try to save money on education funding. So what services are going to be cut with this kind of PST reduction?
Well, first off, we're not cutting any services. Second off, you can't pay for services if there is no economy. You guys have been dragging your time in there through constant consultations. You're so focused on running a snap election that you were late in the game of producing a school plan, so parents, teachers had to scramble to come together and make sure our kids could go to school safe. And then your economic plan right before the snap election was just a regurgitation of old plans and announcements. It was nothing. So, and right now, one of the things that I think is one of the serious things is all levels of government, all party leaders came together and ensured that proper supports were in place for British Columbians. Because of this snap election and with Horgan withholding that money, businesses right now that are on the verge of dying are not going to get that money. They're not going to get the money until we get a government back in place, and they may not survive until that point.
So I didn't hear a direct answer to how we're paying for the pandemic, but I heard some good information. So I think we're ready to move on to the next question unless Brandon wants to chime in on that.
I was just quickly going to point out that, like Rick, I do agree that cutting the PST can be reckless if you do not actually have a plan of how you're going to account for that money you're losing. I remember checking the budget for last year. It was around $7 billion worth of tax, which accounts for roughly about 25% of the government's tax revenue. Now, as Conservatives, we are for cutting taxes, but at the same time, we have to be fiscally responsible where we cut these taxes and ensure that as we cut taxes, we find new revenue to replace this. And I don't think it's particularly responsible to cut that much tax dollars in the middle of a pandemic when our government needs this money.
Okay, I think I'm asking another question on a similar vein here. This question's on small business and the economy. So many small business in our local retail sector seen the revenues drop significantly. Maybe it's been due to forced closures or reduced capacity orders. And we've not seen corresponding relief from the government that matches that loss. So there's a big concern in the chamber membership and the community at large that a lot of these beloved local and family-run businesses won't be around this time next year. What are you and your party going to do to address that? Brandon, this is to you.
So our party's big motion is to be opening a dialogue with local businesses. We're a party that's about people. We want to actually go to these businesses in a socially distant manner and speak with them and figure out what methods and what relief they need directly. We want to actually meet and speak with these businesses to figure out what's needed, because every business, as I'm sure everyone is aware, needs different financial supports and needs different methods to maintain the regulations that will keep everyone healthy. So the main answer to this question, I believe, is having dialogue with the local businesses.
Floor is open. Rick?
Well, and I agree with that. It's very important to have that dialogue. I know earlier James was saying that he didn't like that we were consulting with people around economic recovery. Paraphrasing, I'm sure you can correct me, but it's important. It's important to talk to the people that are affected the most. And you know, our economic recovery plan includes a directed PST rebate towards the purchase of equipment, machinery and equipment. That's something, as we are embarking on infrastructure projects, is critical. A 15% tax credit for hiring new employees, and grants to support 15,000 hard-hit small and medium-sized businesses. So we've come to these points through dialogue with the business community, and that's what we will continue to do going forward as this situation evolves.
James?
Yeah, both interesting points. You know, I've been knocking on doors through this campaign, and I've gotten an earful in terms of, you know, people's dreams, people's livelihoods, these businesses. We're past the point of listening. They want a voice. No one's talking to them, talking for them. You know, very unresponsive in terms of WorkSafe BC, in terms of providing the supplies for PPE, relief funding being held up because of constant consultations and focusing on a snap pandemic election instead of good governance. I've been out there. I've talked to them. We need action right now, and that's what our plan is. That's what the BC Liberal plan is. It's bold, and it's there to build confidence back in BC.
Rick?
Well, I mean, I don't think anything is being held up. It is important to engage with the community. I know myself, as a parliamentary secretary for technology for the province of BC, I've consulted with numerous people across the province in the tech sector around what are the best things that we can do as a province to help stimulate this tech sector going forward. This is just my own personal experience, but I've seen the feedback come from the tech community, and I've seen the results in government. For example, one of the big things that was suggested was a strategic investment fund. We're putting $500 million towards that to help BC businesses grow from a medium to a larger size to help create that ecosystem within BC. I've heard feedback around we need to be able to train people and do rapid reskilling. And we need to target that towards the situation that we're in right now with COVID. And one of the things that businesses need is more assistance in transforming to bringing their services online and their products online. So we're investing in digital marketing. So we have a digital marketing boot camp that we're funding, and I can go into many other examples around there.
Yeah, if I can respond to that.
Please, we got 2 minutes left.
I'm not sure, and you know, I imagine Brandon studies this a fair bit, so you'd agree with me. I'm not sure how an innovation-based economy is ever supported by constant tax increases. So we've had 23 new taxes under the NDP. Before COVID, we were already starting to go to deficits. We were already starting to go towards elements of stagnation. So it is, my colleague here, Rick, has talked about technology. Like the NDP removed the name technology out of one of its ministries. There's been a number of tech hubs closed down as well during his tenure. And it's in anything you read about innovation and technology, tax increases in regulations are not parts of the recipe there.
Okay, I think we'll move on to a different question now. A bit of a different area here, housing and development. Approval for commercial and housing projects face extensive delays and take several years to achieve local government approval throughout the planning process. These delays drastically increase the costs of these projects, putting the project itself at risk or often extending the period before new supply hit the market. How can the provincial government assist the local level of government to accelerate the planning and approval process of building? And questions over to James.
Believe in it first. We've had a real challenge within our riding in terms of elected leaders from municipal up to provincial in terms of speaking for the need of housing, and that's the full spectrum of housing. It's not just low-income housing, it has to be everything. And pretty much within our riding, the only thing that has come online in terms of supports from government is previously BC Liberal projects. So we need to do a lot better.
Well, we're in the midst of a 10-year program on creating affordable housing across the province. And our plan is to build 114,000 affordable housing units over 10 years. And so far, we have completed or are in the process of building 25,000 of those. I think there's approximately 600 or so that have been initiated or completed in the riding during my term. Not in the riding, but in Tri-Cities as a whole. And certainly, it does take time. And we do have to look at what we can do to, make this as efficient as possible while not undermining the authority of the municipal governments. But there are a lot of things we can do while we wait for housing stock to come online. And our government has invested in trying to keep property prices stabilized, putting in a speculation tax, which I understand the BC Liberals want to get rid of. We want to curb foreign speculation. We don't want real estate prices to go up in the way they were prior to the BC NDP coming in.
Rick, prices have been going up because no one's building. And the thing that concerns me is, I've talked to home builders within the area. They say BC Housing is not providing the funding to provide affordable housing in the area because they're not a priority. I've never seen a piece of leadership from you in terms of local papers or whatnot speaking about the need to build stuff here. All I've seen is people from your team and all that coming to City Hall and providing reasons as why we shouldn't build. Like the biggest one was a 6-story small development that was 2 minutes away from transit. Your team was speaking up against it. We need housing. There is little to no rental in our area. There is little to no density around transit hubs that provides affordable housing and affordable means of transportation for people to get to their jobs. I'm looking here to, that's what I'm looking to do, is provide leadership on this.
Thanks, James. That was directed at you. Is there anything you want to say to that? That was kind of directed at you and your parties. Anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, well, I'm not really sure what James is talking about with that. I think we have to, as a provincial government, understand that the municipal government has the authority for land use and official community planning, and they are responsible for that. But certainly we want to do our best to bring new projects forward that have affordable housing, and I have been in contact with the municipality myself, looking for partnerships with the provincial government. And some of these things involve, the sale of lands. You can't really talk about these things in the newspaper until they get to a certain point. And certainly there is dialogue going on right now. I do have every confidence that in my next term there will be new affordable housing announced in my riding.
All right. Randy, you want to chime in on this?
I just want to quickly jump in there. Yes, I'm hearing a lot from Rick that it's a municipal issue, but the provincial government should be working with these municipal governments to open up more land for development. The Conservative Party believes that increasing the supply of houses available by freeing up more property for development is the best way to actually lower prices by working with the market, rather than setting taxes and setting quotas for house building to lower the prices of housing. So we believe it should be a market approach and not a top-down government approach to lowering the prices of housing. I know people in my generation are going to spend years putting in money for amortization and mortgages to pay down these houses? How long will we have to pay into these mortgages before we can afford a house? We need to increase the supply of housing.
Rick?
Well, one other thing that we have to take into account, like when the BC NDP became government, we just experienced a $600,000 average housing price increase in the Lower Mainland, and that put housing out of reach of everyone. And there are several factors that went into that. This was during the BC Liberal government. There was $5 billion being laundered through real estate, and this was being raised by the police were very clearly raising issues around money laundering, and nothing was being done about it.
I don't want to get into money laundering now, which
it's just one example.
In any event. But with houses comes something else, schools, and also ties in the pandemic here. I'm not an expert on this. There's an argument whether there's a second wave coming or if we're in it. But what would your government do to our children and to our public school system across British Columbia if cases continue to go in the wrong direction? And this question, I believe, is now for Brandon.
Thank you. I think we just have to look at the science and what the infection rates are looking like. For very young individuals, the rate of fatality is extremely low. So I think the main thing is making sure that we're maintaining social distancing in schools with different measures, whether or not that's introducing plexiglass into schooling and is separating desks further. We need to be having this generation attending schools so that they can have the same advantages that I had when I attended school. Making people go through online schooling and missing school is not a good way to get ahead. You'll come into university with less knowledge and less grasping of the basic tenets that we've all taken for granted going through the schooling system. So I believe if we follow the science, we make sure that there's social distancing being practiced, mask wearing in schools, there are ways to safely have schools open. But at the same time, if the numbers spike, if it looks like it's going to be dangerous, we will take the smart approach and we will close down schools.
Thank you. Do you have any? Rick?
Well, I'll just agree that we have been taking our advice from Dr. Bonnie Henry, and as the situation evolves, we certainly will look at what we need to do. And when we've been working very well. Our health minister has been working very closely with Dr. Bonnie Henry on this, and we've been, I think, doing a good job on that so far, and we will continue to listen to that advice. Just before the schools opened, our government pushed really hard to get extra funding from the federal government. We acquired a $242 million for the school year to put into health and safety and other measures, such as improving the air systems in the schools, heating and ventilation, increasing hand hygiene and additional hand washing and hand sanitizing, installing plexiglass. So a lot of this funding is going to make sure that our children are as safe as possible in the schools.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, there's not much to add on. I think everyone it's been on point in terms of working with Dr. Bonnie Henry, working with other parties and members of government to make sure our kids are safe, that parents feel secure in terms of the school programs and all that. We as a provincial government are going to be putting a lot more money, we as a party will be putting a lot more money in terms of hybrid learning models, so kids and parents do have a better option in terms of learning at home, important for this time. And we will look to be a little bit more responsive. I got, from neighbors, teachers and all that, that they felt that the government was not responsive on this issue and left it to the last moment in terms of rolling out a school plan, which made teachers, administrators, and parents scramble at the local level to try to make things work.
Any rebuttals from anybody? Okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit now to resource projects and the environment. A safe and well-regulated and responsible natural resource development, it has been a defining feature of the economy in British Columbia for a long time. What would your party do in terms of natural resource development, extraction, along those lines? And this question is going to start off with James. We're talking things about LNG, Site C,
Yeah, I think, from what I've seen that parties are generally in line in terms of the benefits of LNG. The Liberals led that file. The BC NDP, when they came to power, agreed to it, saw the benefits and took it up. We need to, as a government going forward, or the BC Liberals in contrast to the NDP, is really look at terms of improving some of the regulations and red tapes in place, ensuring that we have a necessary tax system that supports these resource sectors. John Horgan really hasn't fought for our resource sector. Our forestry sector has been through hard times. Horgan really wasn't there. We're going to fight for our resource sector. It's a big deal. It's something that British Columbians and Canadians can be proud of, and it's going to be able to provide jobs going forward.
Thank you. Rick?
James mentioned red tape in the context of the resource economy, and I think it's very important to acknowledge that under the BC Liberal government, the entire environmental assessment process was not functioning in the way that it should. People did not have confidence that the environment was being protected. I'll give you one example. There was a project where the mining company wanted to turn a lake called Fish Lake into a tailings pond. It's called Fish Lake because it has fish in it. And this is a very big project. It went through a federal environmental assessment, and it went through a provincial one. And the provincial environmental assessment passed, basically a rubber stamp on that. And the federal environmental assessment, which was more comprehensive, did not pass. And when we became government, we overhauled the environmental assessment process. We are involving First Nations communities more directly in this, and local communities that are affected by resource projects. And we want to get to a quick yes or no as quickly as possible, not drag it on through the courts or anything like that. And if it's a project that isn't appropriate, then it's okay to say no. And let's move on and find projects that are appropriate.
Thank you. As my research deals with actual climate change and glacial recession, the environment is very important to me. But I do acknowledge that there has to be a balance to resource extraction and environmental precautions. That's why when we take government, the Conservative Party will review the regulatory and red tape laws regarding resource extraction, and we will work with scientists and experts in the field to determine what red tape is simply bureaucratic filler and what is actually important to maintaining our resources. We also strongly believe that we should be exporting our Canadian oil, as a reliance on coal energy is one of the largest contributors to global climate change. And I believe by exporting our oil and lowering that reliance, we can actually lower global climate, which is honestly, I think, a great thing for Canada, and we can have an outsized positive effect on the world as a whole.
Okay, I want to ask questions kind of riffing off that. The global climate change emergency. We're talking a lot about natural resource development and extraction and balancing the different interests at play here. But what is your party doing? What is your party proposing? And how are they going to help businesses play a bigger part in transitioning to a lower carbon-based business model while supporting economic growth? I'm hearing a lot of great ideas, but I want specifics. And this is going to Rick.
Well, we have a plan called Clean BC that we worked on with the Greens, and it is one of the leading climate action plans. It is the leading climate action plan in North America, and it is because it's also an economic plan. And what it does is, I think it's $1.3 billion that we're putting towards reducing emissions in industry, towards zero-emission vehicles. Our goal is to get to zero carbon by 2050, and we believe that we can do that while growing the economy and stimulating growth in clean tech and clean energy. It's something that I'm working on myself with Burrard Thermal. I'm hoping to transform that site, which used to be burning fossil fuels, to a place where we can nurture innovation in clean tech and clean energy to make a big difference with climate change. And Clean BC is a wonderful plan, and we hope to build on it as we go forward.
Floor is open. Anybody can take it.
I don't think it really provided specifics, and everyone's wondering what Rick keeps talking about Burrard Thermal. never produces anything in terms of what is actually going to be done with that site. Clean BC is a lot of hot air. Carbon emissions continue to rise under that plan. Nothing's really been solved in it. And you know what? This is a major challenge. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in terms of what we've got ahead of us, but I don't take it lightly. The specifics in terms of where we're going, I think COVID really provided something, an example of when you shut down the economy for a rapid transition, which a lot of, the NDP speak about, my green colleague that's not here speak about, both of them come to in terms of this rapid green transition. It shows how many people's livelihoods are at stake. And that's, I think, a very dangerous situation to go in. So we do need to rely on our resource sector. We do need a vibrant economy. We're the only party that really takes that serious and going forward for that transition.
Thank you. Brandon?
Thank you. One of our big policies that we're looking for at the Conservative Party of British Columbia is actually transitioning away from taxes and fees such as the carbon tax, which, looking at the BC government's own numbers yesterday on my computer, you can look them up. They're readily available on Google. Our actual yearly carbon emissions in kilotons of CO2 per year have actually gone up by 7% since 2007, when the carbon tax was initially introduced. Now, when the Liberals originally introduced the carbon tax, they said it was going to be revenue neutral and it would not exceed $30 per ton. It's now at $40 per ton. We're not even pretending it's revenue neutral anymore. And if the COVID crisis did not hit, by next year we would have probably been looking at $50 per ton. Why are we punishing consumers for using their gas-powered cars? We should not be punishing people from getting from A to B. We should rather be subsidizing electric vehicles and providing money for innovation and rewarding good green new innovations that companies explore through subsidies and tax incentives. Thank you.
And I'd like to play off Brandon what he
Rick,
said
Rick
there.
was going to
Okay.
jump into that.
Yep.
Well, the increase in the carbon tax is going towards innovation and incentivizing carbon reduction in industry. That's exactly the point of it. You're talking about doing that, but you have to be able to, help incentivize that. Just one point on Burrard Thermal, this is another example where, if I get reelected in my next term, you will see some changes in Burrard Thermal. I was out there 2 months ago with the Premier. I've been talking to CEOs of some leading clean tech companies, and BC has been a leader in clean tech internationally, and there's a lot of incredible innovation going on in that area. I helped bring forward a bill in the last session of the legislature to amend the Clean Energy Act to allow different uses on Burrard Thermal. That bill did not pass because the Greens did not support it for different reasons, but it just shows that why we need to have a stable government going forward.
Yeah, I would like to just, Brandon brings up some good points about carbon tax, and Rick's logic is very wrong. The carbon tax now has become a tax grab. Only 15% of it actually goes to environmental initiatives. The rest of it, we don't know where it goes. It just goes to general revenues because they've also taken the ability for transparency and report to see where it goes, so British Columbians can rest assured that it is going to supporting environmental initiatives and improving our way towards a green transformation. The BC Liberals are looking to bring it back to an actual carbon tax mechanism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask one of my favorite questions here to ask. Without a preface, party platforms are holistic in nature, very broad. Tell me one thing in your party's platform that you disagree with or would expand upon. And I think I lost my order, but I think we're to Rick now.
I was last.
Okay, Brandon, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, obviously, you never want to be too critical of your own party, just acknowledging the realisms of party politics. But I will admit, as somebody who is in climate sciences and who understands a lot of the climate issues, I would like to expand more our actual platform on market incentives towards climate change. I know that we can work with the market to reduce greenhouse gases without penalizing people with taxes and fees, and I would just like to expand it more, which I honestly believe our party will wholeheartedly take up. I speak regularly with the party leader, Trevor Boland. He's extremely open to new ideas. He listens to local residents, and I believe that he'll have a wholly warm ear to listen about this. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick, do you want to go?
Oh, I'll just say I would love to see even more investment in the tech sector. In my experience as a parliamentary secretary, I'm also Canadian Vice President for the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, and I see the incredible growth of the tech sector in other jurisdictions, and I see incredible potential here in BC. And I know that we're unveiling a number of great programs, and I think there's a lot more that we can do in that area. So that would be something that I would like to focus on.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to talk about three things that I'd like to build on, come a representative of the riding. One definitely is innovation. I see, if we want to expand the BC economy, make us competitive within not only Canada but globally, we need to do a lot more in terms of investment and research and development to create invention, and then work with the private sector and spin-offs for innovation. The other thing is with the environmental file, we need to do better in terms of, and this is just, I'm not saying the party, it's something that I want to fight for, better in supporting industries, trucking sectors. I work in the port. There's still a lot of carbon-based ways of production. Help with that electric transfer to reduce the carbon emissions. So those are two big things. And then the one is supporting growth. And by growth, I mean...
There you go. It's not really a debate question here, so I'll move to another one. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a litigation lawyer, so I'm trying not to be biased for this one. We know where it's going, ICBC. What's your party's plan with ICBC? And we're starting with James on this one.
We're going to open it up to competition. We're giving people a choice. It's plain and simple. I think people... We've heard it. I've actually had one person that was door knocking said, I voted twice for the NDP. You guys have said that you're opening up ICBC for competition. You're giving me choice. You're getting my vote. So, that's the big thing. Some people have been concerned, is ICBC going anywhere? No, ICBC is still a part of that choice. You still have a no-fault insurance through ICBC. But people have demanded choice. We're going to give them choice. We're opening up competition so people can shop around.
Not to answer that question for you, but is the inference there that it's just opening it up, or is the inference that will bring down prices?
Bringing down the prices through competition. We're mimicking things like the Saskatchewan model. It's been working well for those residents there.
Thank you for the clarification. Rick?
Anywhere where you've seen private insurance for car insurance, you haven't seen the prices start going down, not to the effect that you'd hope for. What we're doing with ICBC is transforming the organization, and I know this is something that is a big change. It's a big change, and it's going to result in an average 20% rate cut for all drivers, and take away that whole litigation. Needing to get a lawyer to get your benefits. The benefits under the new ICBC the coverage is going to go up drastically. Medical rehab coverage is going to be 24 times higher than it is today. Lots of new coverages are going to be added for different circumstances. Again, we went out to the public to talk about what improvements need to be made, and we're implementing those improvements. ICBC is a Crown corporation. It's owned by the people of BC, and it should give back to the people of BC.
Thank you, Rick.
I'm glad that the BC Liberals are finally on board with us about opening up ICBC to private competition. We originally advocated for this policy all the way back in 2018. You know what they say, imitation is the greatest form of compliment. But with respect to the rates, British Columbians pay some of the highest rates for insurance in all of Canada, and ICBC has been around for years and it's still a mess. Why do we believe dumping more money into it is going to fix the problem? It has no market pressures to actually conform to competitive rates if it has no competition. That's the inherent problem with monopoly. So my party is fully committed to opening up ICBC to private competition, and you will still be able to have your public option if you so choose.
Rick?
ICBC became a mess under the BC Liberals because they were pulling money out of it like a cash machine. They pulled out $1.2 billion from the resources of ICBC. We, as a government, have brought forward and passed legislation to prevent that from ever happening again. From now on, and by the way, the BC Liberals voted against that. From now on, if there is a profit of ICBC, that profit is going directly back to the people of BC. In fact, during this pandemic, if there's any, we've committed that if there's any surplus, that will be going back to the people of BC. That's what a Crown Corporation should be, and then that's what it's going to get back to.
And if I can go into there and see, that's the problem. Just what Rick said there. It's like the government holding your money for ransom. You know, the premiums were going up. No one was getting a rebate during COVID, and they were just holding it, waiting for this election, when they should have been concentrating on forming a proper school plan, a proper economic plan. And that's why we've gone with the PST cut, because we respect people's choice and we respect their ability to manage their money.
I'm curious to hear, you know, the BC Liberals took $1.2 billion out of ICBC. They took money out of BC Hydro in rate deferred accounts. Do you agree with that?
That's past government, Rick. I'm a new guy, so
A lot of the same
I'm coming
people
up
are
with
there,
a new
James.
option. We're coming up with new choices, and we're opening up the market competition.
Andrew
The biggest
Wilkinson was
challenge that
there.
you had, that John Horgan had, he didn't meet the mill on it. He should have provided people that money when they needed it. And instead, he's holding it onto it and using it as something to dangle in front of people during an election when they needed it the most.
Andrew Wilkinson was there in cabinet when that happened, and he's the leader of your party.
Well, we'll review the Hansard after the meeting. We talked about housing, we talked about schools, but I want to talk about childcare and early childhood education. As a side note, before I ask the question, you know, I've always wondered, why is it always $10 a day? Where did the $10 a day number come from? Why not $9.99? Why not $15? But anyways, that's not the question. What will your government do to increase access to childcare, daycare, early childhood education, and reduce the fees? And we start with Rick, so it's on to Brandon this time.
Well, we've embarked...
sorry, Rick, it's
Oh,
Brandon.
sorry.
Thank you.
We believe strongly that childcare should be supported so that actual parents can go to their jobs and be able to work and still make a salary without having to worry about whether or not their child's going to be able to go to daycare. So we do believe in supporting families with their childcare and through daycares. I know it was tough for my mom personally, working as a realtor, with my father also working as an electrical project manager during the time, to pay for these things, and the last thing they needed to worry about was whether or not I was going to be taken care of. So the Conservative Party believes in families. We believe that every family needs to work to put food on the table, and we believe in supporting childcare as well. Thank you.
This is a 10-year plan for us, but already 32,000 families in BC are receiving $10 a day or less. You know, it's a good point. $10 a day is just a number. There are some that are paying less than $10 a day, and some that are paying a bit more. But there are many programs involved here. And for example, right in the Tri-Cities, right in our riding, for example, the amount of money that has gone back to the hands of parents is almost $7 million in some of the grants that have been received to reduce the cost of childcare. And there's a lot more work to do, and we've added extra funds in our economic recovery plan to accelerate this, because we understand how important it is. Childcare is such an important thing for young parents to be able to get back to work and help grow the economy. It's something that, you know, we've started, and we hope to be able to continue if we're your government.
Yeah, you know, everyone here is in agreement that childcare is important. I have two children, you know, 2 and 4, that need this childcare, and it's been a nightmare. We, you know, since November, have gone through 6 different choices or options to try to get it, and we finally found something in Coquitlam, 20 minutes away from where we need to go for work. You talk to many parents, it's a nightmare. We need to do better. Our government is doing the $10 program as well, but we're also doing graduated program from 20 to 30 to expand the options in terms of for more people that have the access, more middle income families, and as well with our infrastructure program that is just massive. We're going to build a lot more spaces. So we're looking at all options in here, and the NDP talk a good game. They really haven't met the mail with the 3 years that they've had. We're going to do it.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? What do we got here? Tourism. Tourism's been arguably the most hard hit of the industries in British Columbia, and tourism's a big industry in British Columbia. What's your government going to do if elected? What's your government going to do to either, if the pandemic's continuing, support tourism businesses through that, and once the pandemic's over, bring tourists back? And that was Brandon, so we're going to James now.
I was feeling lonely down here. Yeah, we're taking this very serious. So that's why, right away in terms of the PST cut, 7%, followed by the next year at 3%. So that's for all families in British Columbia, a lot of them within the tourism sector. The 2% small business tax cut as well to help those businesses struggling, and then a guaranteed load program to the tourism sector. The tourism sector pretty much got forgotten here within this COVID time. And when we talk, or when I've mentioned that again about John Horgan holding up those money going into a snap election, a bunch of the businesses in tourism may not make it through winter. I actually had one call from one gentleman that brought this up, and it was almost tears saying, please help. We're getting ignored here. We as the BC Liberals take this situation serious. We're not ignoring it. We're taking action immediately.
Thank you. Rick?
Well, I mean, it's the nature of COVID that the tourism industry would find challenges. We're limiting our travel, so of course the tourism industry is going to be impacted. And we are working closely with the tourism industry, and there are many supports in place for that going forward. But like any other business, like any other resident of the province, our goal is to work with you to make sure things are affordable, to work on a strong economic recovery, and that's what we intend to do going forward. So.
Yeah, I just have one thing there to say, and it's just kind of concerning, which Rick brought up, and he said the nature of COVID. It was kind of like sink or swim type statement there. And I feel that's kind of been the attitude a bit of the NDP in approaching family businesses, people's dreams, people's livelihoods. That's a lot of what's going on with this in terms of the tourism sector. This statement, we're all into this together. We as the BC Liberals take that serious. We're not going to allow people within the tourism sector to flounder just because, hey, that's the nature of COVID.
Thank you. I'd also like to agree with Mr. Robertson on that as well. I think saying the nature of COVID when you have your life savings tied up in a personal vacation spot is just simply unacceptable. If somebody told that to my mom in the realty industry and was just told to sink or swim, that'd be absolutely devastating. That's why the Conservative Party of British Columbia actually wants to introduce a tax credit for BC residents so that you can actually go to different BC tourist towns and we can stimulate our local economies with local BC residents. It's safer in the sense that we're not bringing in international travel, and we understand that that will be shut down for a while due to the current situation with COVID, but we believe there are ways to work around that in a safe manner by stimulating tourism business within our local communities. Thank you.
No one is saying sink or swim. I don't know where this language is coming from. It is what I'm saying is that we are in a difficult situation. We are in an absolutely difficult situation, and we need a government that's going to work closely with the tourism industry to get through this situation. And I can tell you, working with the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, because it covers jurisdictions in the U.S. and Canada. One of the key things that we've been talking about is tourism. It's impacting all jurisdictions, and how do we get people from one place to another in a safe way? There are pilot projects going on at YVR right now, where they're looking at, and this is happening in Alaska as well, where they're looking at testing prior to entering the terminal, so that everyone in the facility is clear of COVID, for example. And there's trials going on with this. There's border crossing trials going on right now with trucking industry, and seeing if there's ways that can be facilitated. As we get closer to a vaccine on this, we're going to need to ramp up these activities to make sure that people are safe, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're working on.
Thank you. Brandon?
With respect, though, me and James here have actually proposed actual economic policies to stimulate our tourism industry right now. The NDP saying that there's stuff down the tube waiting to come is simply not good enough for businesses that are teetering right on the edge of collapse right now. If you want to actually elect a government that will actually enact tax and fiscal policies that will stimulate our tourist business and bring them relief that they need right now, you have to look past the NDP's walk-around language of saying we're working on it and actually elect a government that will do something about it right now.
All right. Strata. We've heard in the news, Strata insurance is climbing dramatically. What is your party's plan to address this? And we're going to Rick.
Well, we've already taken some steps in closing loopholes on Strata insurance, and what is clear is a lot of people have been affected by this. Strata insurance rates have gone up significantly, and deductibles have gone up significantly. I've talked to a lot of people about this. With the measures that we've put in place already, we're hoping that will stabilize and reduce the Strata insurance fees. And we are committed that if we do not see these insurance rates go down in the next year, that we will look at the option of public insurance on this front as well.
Brandon?
Thank you. Again, it's about dialogue. We need to speak with the actual residents that are living in these stratas. We need to speak with the boards that operate these stratas, and we need to figure out ways to get these insurance rates down that accommodates both the residents and the actual strata operators.
Yeah.
James?
Yeah, we've been talking with Strata Insurance or with Stratas on this situation. We've made some proposals that could provide some relief. Todd Stone has definitely been leading this file, and it's unfortunately, again, the NDP dragged their feet on it. But we've come up, the new proposal that's come forward, or the new platform that we have, we're definitely providing Stratas certain options there that will reduce their insurance burdens.
Rick?
Which options? What are you proposing?
Pardon?
What are you proposing?
We're looking at certain mechanisms here for individual stratas to make their own decisions. I'm not going to waffle this. That's this platform was just released today, so yeah, we can leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I have a personal question, a personal interest question here. Specific to your riding, what's your party's stance on safe drug use sites as well as a safe supply of narcotics? And down my list, I believe that's James now.
Yeah, we've taken a more holistic approach to this situation in terms of the 4 pillars of treatment, or the 4 pillars towards drug addiction, mental health. The one process that seems to, there's a couple here that seem to be forgotten. The NDP have just kind of thrown people into hotels or continue to allow tent encampments. We think that's wrong. First off, we need to provide a path towards treatment for these folks. Suffering with tent encampments or hotels is not helping anyone. It's also a burden to the communities. It's hard for these communities. There's a public safety situation in terms of the residents living in that. And there's also a public safety issue to the people that are dealing with their mental health and drug addictions within that area. And so we're going to go with a holistic approach to this situation. We're providing a lot more funding both to police, integrated mental health teams, and looking towards actually implementing the four-pillar approach.
Does that approach include a safe supply of drugs? At no cost to a drug user. That's the conversation.
Yeah, you know, for me, how I approach this is I'm going to be working, you know, and our government will be working with doctors and providing what is the best approach to deal with that situation.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, we're taking this issue very seriously. We were making progress on this front prior to the COVID pandemic. Overdose deaths in BC were down 36% in 2019, and that's the first time that they've been down since 2012. We have a Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions that is focused on this. You know, we need to focus on prevention. We need to protect and support younger people. So we've doubled our youth treatment beds already from 104 to 247, and there's another 800 on the way. We need to work with the federal government to decriminalize small amounts for personal use, and absolutely we need safe alternatives safe prescription alternatives for drugs.
Brandon?
The Conservative Party of British Columbia certainly believes that it's important to approach these individuals not as people who are committing crimes, but people who need help. Drug use is a very hard addiction to kick, and it can, with the type of drugs that are available on the streets nowadays, it is far easier to get extremely addicted and be hooked on an extremely dangerous drug nowadays. Now, I believe it is very important to provide safe locations for people to be able to undergo these injections while having trained professional medical experts there to treat them in the event that there is an overdose. A case of Naxalone can be a life-saving device, and it can be operated by well-trained individuals. So I believe that we should have safe injection sites, although our party will not provide the actual drugs themselves. I do not believe in that.
Love the direct answer. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, I think we have time for one more quick question here. We asked this at the last debate as well. The federal government, a lot of the money to relieve COVID here has come from the federal government. If elected, what would be your wish list to lobby the federal government for the benefit of our province and our community? And on my list, I think that is now back to James.
Yeah, I'm going to take this down to a local level. One of the challenges I'm finding with at a local level is a couple things. One is our school infrastructure. The BC Liberals are putting a lot of money towards school infrastructure, and I'd like the federal government to, help provide further funding, especially to sports infrastructure, our sports fields, active transportation within the Tri-Cities could be a lot better. And I hope, to lead those discussions and ensure that the feds can help provide that money. Alongside, further money and supports for our businesses, community businesses in the area. But local infrastructure is going to be important. We're putting a lot of money for it. It'd be great to see the feds put some more money towards that as well. Same with affordable housing.
So to summarize that one, local infrastructure.
Yep.
Rick?
Yeah, I think certainly affordable housing is a key initiative. But when we take a step back and we kind of look at what are the biggest issues we're facing today? I mean, other than the pandemic, climate change is one of the biggest issues we're facing today, and we need to work with different levels of government to address this issue, and other governments as well. This is one of the key things that is going to affect every one of our children going forward into the future. This is something that's very important to me. When we had a climate change debate in the legislature, There were 3 people on the BC NDP side that spoke in that debate: the Premier, the Minister of Environment, and myself. And I believe very deeply in my heart that we need to take all actions that we possibly can to address climate change. And I believe that we can do it by nurturing innovation in clean tech, clean energy. I believe we can do it by stimulating the economy. And I think there's a lot of work that we need to do there. And there's a lot of opportunities for partnership at the federal level.
Thank you. Brandon.
I think the most important thing that I would look to, particularly in the COVID situation that we're in, is more support for local businesses and wage subsidies. I believe that we need to be contributing, the federal government needs to be contributing more towards wages so that we can have our workers being fully supported with the income that they normally expect. Because when your income is reduced, that's directly linked to a lowered overall health outcome. You're more stressed, you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to afford the same things that you bought before. You're worried that your family is going to have to become accustomed to a lower standard of living. So I think the big thing is supporting our local businesses and making sure that we're able to maintain close to the same semblance of the incomes that we had before, whether that's through direct wage subsidies or whether that's through direct business support. I just think the most important thing is making sure that we can earn money during this COVID pandemic.
All right, it's closing time. It's time, candidates, you have 2 minutes for your closing statements, and in speaking order to continue the way we were doing it, Rick, you're going to start your closing statements now. You have 2 minutes.
All right, well, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here today and to answer your questions and to engage in this dialogue. We face very challenging times ahead of us. We need a government that we can put our trust in. One that has demonstrated how we can navigate through this pandemic successfully. We've been able to accomplish so much in the last 3.5 years. We've invested in healthcare, housing, childcare, education, and environmental protection. We've made life more affordable for people, and we will have a strong economic recovery because we're investing in people. My journey into politics began, as I said, when my daughter was born. I started volunteering in the community and fighting for things that made a difference in my community and for the future of our children. Politics, for me, is not about a position or a title. It's about a way of being. If I wasn't doing this job, I would still be fighting for these things. Fighting for these things side by side with you. And I want you to know that the BC NDP will always be fighting side by side with you. And we will get through this and any other challenges we face together. Thank you.
Brandon?
Thank you. I'd just like to indulge the audience just for a quick moment with a quick family story. My grandfather grew up in Cuba, and he had to leave the country due to Castro taking over and forcing his regime. He moved to America with very little income, and through hard work, dedication, and entrepreneurship, he was managed to make enough money to create a good life for his family. My father moved to Canada. He loves this country. He's worked hard every day to provide all of the resources that I have towards right now. I believe very strongly in hard work ethic and the entrepreneurial spirit, and that is why I support the Conservative Party of British Columbia. It embodies that entrepreneurial spirit, hard work, and dedication. And I believe that we have the best policy after coming out of this COVID pandemic to restart this economy, whether that's through opening up ICBC to private competition or removing the carbon tax to save people money at the pump, on groceries, and on home utilities. I thank the candidates for their inspiring debate, and I thank the Chamber for hosting this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, same to you. Good job. Good job, guys. My wife always asks me why. Why am I doing this? She tells me we don't need the ugliness of politics and the toxicity of social media. Well, I'm running because my calling is to serve. And after serving my country for 15 years, I want to serve this province because we want better. We want better for our kids, for our elders, and we want better for our own future. And I promise to speak on behalf of all voices. As a Canadian patriot, I represent a big heart of this country, which fosters inclusion and acceptance of everyone, regardless of one's background, faith, gender, or beliefs. What the NDP is proposing to continue doing is not sustainable, and we cannot continue down a path of wealth distribution or us versus them politics. We can and must do better. While the current political climate is polarizing, Canada is still a land of opportunity. We don't have to choose between affordability and a healthy environment, a free marketplace, and a well-functioning government. We can have it all with a moderate approach, common sense government, and proper planning. And you have my word, I will outwork any candidate in the room tonight, approaching the issues ahead with a humble and collaborative mindset. We have laid out a bold platform together, and we support each other through this crisis and lay the foundation for future growth. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve again.
Thank you, candidates. It takes great courage and time to run for office, and I appreciate your work, and I think the community also appreciates your work, and I want to personally thank all of you for your civility tonight. Proud to be Canadian, proud to be British Columbian tonight. I want to remind everybody to go out and vote on October 24th. Go to www.elections.bc.ca to find the nearest location near you, and have a great night. Thank you very much.